You think your anxiety is random. You think it shows up without reason. You think it's something you just have to deal with, something you have to manage. But that's not what's happening. There is a cause. Clear, consistent, repeated. Man is not worried by real problems so much as by his imagined anxieties about real problems. Epictetus. Your anxiety is not coming from what's happening. It's coming from how your mind is processing it. Look at your day. From the moment you wake up, your mind starts moving. Fast, uncontrolled, unfiltered. You check your phone. Information hits you immediately. Messages, content, updates, noise. Before you've even had a moment to think clearly, your attention is already scattered. That matters, because how you start your day sets the state of your mind. You don't begin with control. You begin with reaction. And once your mind is in that reactive state, it stays there. You move from one thing to another, constantly, switching, checking, responding. Your attention never settles. And when attention doesn't settle, your thoughts don't either. They jump. They overlap. They compete. That creates tension. Not physical tension. Mental. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Marcus Aurelius. And your thoughts right now are not stable. They're fragmented, pulled in different directions. You think about what you need to do. At the same time, you're thinking about what you haven't done. At the same time, you're thinking about what might go wrong. Everything is running at once, and your mind is trying to process all of it. That creates pressure. You feel it as anxiety, but that's just the surface. Underneath it, there's something else. Lack of control. You're not directing your thoughts. You're reacting to them. And when you don't control your thoughts, they control you. You don't decide what to focus on. Your environment does. Your habits do. Your conditioning does. And most of what you're consuming is not helping. It's fast, constant, overstimulating, short content, rapid switching, continuous input. Your brain adapts to that. It expects speed. It expects novelty. It expects constant change. So when things slow down, your system doesn't relax. It becomes restless. That restlessness feels like anxiety, because your mind is no longer comfortable with stillness. While we wait for life, life passes. Seneca. There's another layer. You're carrying unfinished things. Tasks you haven't completed. Decisions you've been delaying. Conversations you haven't had. Actions you keep postponing. Each one stays in your mind. Not clearly. In the background. Taking up space. Your brain doesn't ignore unfinished things. It tracks them. Constantly. And the more you leave unresolved, the more pressure builds. You feel it. Not as a clear signal. As tension. That tension doesn't go away, because you don't resolve the source. You distract yourself from it. You scroll. You watch. You consume. But the moment you stop, it's still there, waiting. That's why your anxiety doesn't disappear, because the cause hasn't been addressed. You're managing the feeling, not fixing the source. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. Epictetus. There's more. You're thinking too far ahead, constantly projecting. What if this goes wrong? What if I fail? What if this doesn't work? You're not dealing with what's real. You're dealing with possibilities. And your mind treats those possibilities as if they're happening. That creates stress, because now you're reacting to things that don't exist yet. And you're doing it repeatedly, every day. So your system stays activated, even when there's no immediate threat. That's what anxiety is. A system that doesn't turn off, because you keep feeding it. through overthinking, through avoidance, through constant stimulation. Right now, you're not broken. Your system is overloaded. And until you change how you think, how you focus, and how you act, that overload will continue. The patterns creating your anxiety. You don't just feel anxious. You're running patterns that produce it. Daily, consistently, often without noticing. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Seneca. That's not abstract. It's mechanical. Your mind follows loops. And those loops create tension. We break them down. 1. You overthink without resolution. You don't just think. You loop. You replay situations. You analyze possibilities. You go over the same idea again and again, without reaching a conclusion. It feels like you're solving something. You're not. You're staying in the problem. You ask, what if this goes wrong? What if I mess this up? What if this doesn't work? And then you keep thinking, without deciding. That creates pressure, because your brain is trying to close the loop, but you're not allowing it to. So it stays open, and open loops create tension. 2. You avoid what needs to be done. You know what requires action, but you delay it. You postpone. You shift attention to something easier. That avoidance doesn't remove the task. It stores it in your mind, and your mind keeps track. Every delayed action becomes background pressure. You may not think about it constantly, but it's there, taking up space. The more you avoid, the more builds up, until your system feels overloaded. That overload shows up as anxiety. 3. You keep too many things open. Your attention is scattered. Multiple tasks, multiple thoughts, multiple priorities. Nothing fully completed, nothing fully closed. You move between things without finishing. That creates fragmentation. Your mind doesn't get closure, so it keeps everything active, and that creates mental noise. Not one clear signal, multiple incomplete ones. That's exhausting. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Marcus Aurelius. Right now, your thoughts are not structured. They're overlapping. 4. You constantly check and switch. You don't stay on one thing. You check your phone. You switch tabs. You move between tasks. Your attention breaks repeatedly. Every switch has a cost. Your brain has to re-engage, refocus, rebuild context. That takes energy. So your mental state becomes unstable, not focused, not settled. That instability feels like anxiety, because your mind never gets a chance to lock in. 5. You depend on how you feel. If you feel ready, you act. If you don't, you hesitate. That creates inconsistency, because your feelings change constantly. So your actions become unpredictable. And when your actions are unpredictable, your results are too. That lack of consistency creates uncertainty, and uncertainty creates anxiety, because you don't trust your own follow-through. 6. You think ahead without control. You project into the future, constantly, not strategically, emotionally. You imagine outcomes, problems, failures, and you react to them as if they're real. That activates your system, even though nothing is happening. So your body and mind stay in a state of tension, without a real cause. 7. You don't sit with your thoughts long enough to resolve them. You distract yourself too quickly. The moment something uncomfortable comes up, you shift attention. You scroll. You watch. You engage with something external. So the thought never gets processed. It stays incomplete. And incomplete thoughts return. Stronger, more persistent. That creates repeated mental interruptions. which feels like anxiety. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. Epictetus. 8. You lack clear direction. You're moving, but not with precision. You're doing things, but not aligned with a clear path. That creates uncertainty, because your mind doesn't know where it's going. And when direction is unclear, everything feels unstable. That instability shows up as anxiety, because your system is trying to find structure, and it can't. Right now, these patterns are running automatically. You're not choosing them, you're repeating them. And that repetition is what creates your mental state. Not external events, not random feelings, patterns. But now you see them clearly, and once you see them, you can change them. Eliminate anxiety at the source. You don't fight anxiety directly. You remove what produces it. That's the shift. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. Right now, your mind is running loops. Unfinished thoughts. Unresolved actions. Scattered attention. We shut that down, one pattern at a time. 1. You close open loops immediately. If something requires a decision, you make it. If something requires action, you take the first step. You don't leave things unresolved, because unresolved things don't disappear. They stay active, taking up space in your mind. So you reduce the number of open loops. Aggressively. Not everything needs a perfect solution. It needs closure, decision, action, completion. That removes pressure instantly. 2. You limit thinking to defined periods. You don't let your mind run freely all day. You create boundaries. Time to think. Time to act. When it's time to act, you act. You don't overthink during execution. When it's time to think, you think clearly, focused, directed. This prevents constant mental looping, because thinking is contained, not scattered across your entire day. While we wait for life, life passes. Seneca. 3. You reduce input drastically. Your mind is overloaded. Too much information, too many sources, too much noise. So you cut it. Less content, less checking, less consumption. You don't need constant input. You need clarity. And clarity requires space. When you reduce input, your thoughts slow down. They become structured. That reduces internal tension. 4. You focus on one thing at a time. No switching, no multitasking. One task. Full attention. You complete it, then move on. This creates closure. Instead of fragmentation, your mind settles, because it's not tracking multiple incomplete things. The obstacle is the way. Marcus Aurelius. 5. You act without waiting for the right state. You don't wait to feel ready. You don't wait for clarity. You create clarity through action. The longer you wait, the more your mind loops. So you shorten the gap. Task appears. You act. Immediately. This breaks overthinking, because action replaces thought. 6. You bring your focus back to the present. Not the future. Not imagined outcomes. What is in front of you? What needs to be done now? You stay there. Every time your mind moves ahead, you bring it back. This reduces projection. And projection is a major source of anxiety. Man is not worried by real problems so much as by his imagined anxieties about real problems. Epictetus. 7. You sit with discomfort instead of escaping. When a thought creates tension, you don't run. You stay. You observe it. You let it pass. Without reacting. Without adding more thoughts to it. This weakens the loop, because you're not feeding it. Over time, those thoughts lose intensity. And eventually, they stop returning as strongly. 8. You create clear direction daily. You define what matters before your day starts, not during. So your mind knows where to focus, what to prioritize, what to ignore. That removes uncertainty, and uncertainty creates anxiety. When direction is clear, your mind settles. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. Epictetus. This is how anxiety disappears. Not through suppression, not through distraction, through structure, through clarity, through action. You remove open loops. You reduce mental noise. You act instead of overthinking. And as a result, your system stabilizes. Your thoughts slow down. Your focus improves. Your tension drops. Because the source is gone. At first, this requires awareness. You'll catch yourself looping, delaying, projecting, and each time, you correct it. Immediately. That's how the system changes. Not in theory, in repetition. Make it impossible to return to. Anxiety is not random. It's a response. A result of how you think, act, and structure your day. So if you change the structure, you change the result. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. You don't manage anxiety anymore. You prevent it. You build a system that does not allow it to grow. Not through effort, through design. First, you remove unpredictability. Your day is defined. Clear start, clear tasks, clear direction. You don't wake up and decide what to do. It's already set. Because uncertainty creates tension. And when your day is unclear, your mind fills the gap with questions. What should I do? Am I doing the right thing? What am I missing? That creates pressure. So you eliminate it. Your actions are predefined. No confusión. No hesitación. Just execution. Second, you eliminate accumulation. You don't let tasks build up. You don't let decisions sit unresolved. Everything is handled quickly. Not perfectly. Efficiently. Because accumulation creates mental weight. And that weight becomes anxiety. So you keep your system clean. Nothing sits too long. Everything moves. Third, you control your input environment. Not passively. Deliberately. You decide what enters your mind. Not everything deserves your attention. Most of what you consume adds noise. So you filter aggressively. Less content. More clarity. Less reaction. More control. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Marcus Aurelius. And your thoughts depend on what you allow in. Fourth, you stabilize your attention. No constant switching. No scattered focus. You train your mind to stay. One task. Sustained attention. That creates mental stability. Because your mind is no longer jumping between signals. It locks onto one. And stays there. Fifth, you remove emotional decision-making. You don't act based on how you feel. You act based on structure. Because feelings are unstable. And unstable input creates unstable output. So your system does not depend on them. You follow your plan. Every time. He who is brave is free. Seneca. Freedom is not doing what you feel. It's being able to act regardless of how you feel. Sixth, you reduce future projection. You don't live in what if. You stay in what is. What is real? What is in front of you? Because projection creates imaginary problems. And your mind reacts to them as if they're real. So you cut that off. Every time your mind moves too far ahead, you bring it back. Immediately. Seventh, you maintain daily mental reset. You don't carry the day with you. At the end of each day, You clear everything. What was done? What was not? What needs to be handled? You define it. So nothing stays unresolved overnight. Because unresolved thoughts grow in silence. And they return stronger. So you close them. Daily. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. Epictetus. This is how anxiety becomes impossible to return. Not by suppressing it. By removing every condition that creates it.
No overload. No accumulation.
No scattered attention.
No unresolved loops.
Everything is structured, clear, handled. Your mind no longer needs to stay active constantly, because there is nothing pressing it, nothing unresolved. So it settles. Naturally, calm becomes your baseline, not something you chase, something you operate from. And once you reach this point, anxiety has no place to exist, because the system that created it no longer exists. At this point, you're no longer reacting the same way. Your thoughts are clearer. Your actions are structured. Your attention is controlled. But this is where it becomes permanent, because calm is not something you visit. It becomes where you operate from. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. Calm is not the absence of pressure. It's stability within it. Before, your mind reacted to everything. Every thought. Every possibility. Every unfinished situation. Now, it doesn't. Because there is no excess.
No overload.
No constant loop running in the background. You've removed what creates tension. So your system doesn't activate unnecessarily. This is the shift. You don't try to calm down. You are calm by default. Because there is nothing pushing your mind into instability. Your thoughts don't race. They move with direction. One at a time. Clear. You don't jump between things. You stay. That alone changes everything. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Marcus Aurelius. Your thoughts are no longer chaotic. So your internal state is no longer chaotic. You don't carry unfinished problems. You handle them. You don't delay decisions. You make them. You don't leave things open. You close them. That removes background pressure. And without that pressure, your mind doesn't need to stay active. It settles. Naturally. You also no longer project constantly. You're not living in imagined outcomes. You're dealing with what's real. What's in front of you. That reduces unnecessary stress. Because most of what you were reacting to was never happening. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Seneca. Now you see that clearly. And because you see it, you don't engage with it. You let it pass. You return to the present. Every time. That repetition builds stability. Not temporary calm.
Permanent contrôle.
There's another shift. You trust yourself. Because your actions are consistent. You do what you say. You follow through. You handle what needs to be handled. That removes internal conflict. Because there's no gap between intention and action. And that gap is what creates tension. Now it's gone. So your system doesn't stay alert. It relaxes. Because it knows things are under control. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. Epictetus. This is what most people never reach. Not because it's impossible. Because they never remove the cause. They try to manage anxiety. You removed it. So now, calm is not something you chase. It's your baseline. You operate from it. In work. In decisions. In pressure. Everything becomes clearer. Faster. More controlled. Because your mind is not overloaded. It's focused. Stable. And once this becomes your normal, you don't go back. Because you feel the difference. You feel the clarity. the control, the absence of constant tension. And you protect it. You don't allow old patterns to return, not even slightly, because you understand the cost. You don't drift. You don't overload yourself. You don't leave things unresolved. You maintain the system daily, and that keeps everything stable. He who is brave is free. Seneca. Freedom is not external. It's internal stability. And now you have it.
No constant anxiety.
No mental noise. No internal pressure. Just clarity, control, calm. And from that state, you move differently. You act faster. You think clearer. You perform better. Because your system is not working against you. It's aligned. That's the final shift. That's the result. If you made it this far, you already understand. So don't stop here. Subscribe to the Unbroken Protocol and go to the next video. You can be dangerous if you do this, because once you gain control, there's a level beyond calm. And if you tap into it, you become someone most people can't compete with. See you in the next video.